He was just teaching exactly what he's teaching. It's more biblical now. But now he realizes when he goes to church, it's a place for him to relax and meditate.
And he's been going to church with you. So in terms of your faith, would you say that you always maintained your faith throughout your adult life, but it was more just not a priority?
Yes.
Or would you say that there was like another...
Ruslan.
So in terms of your faith, would you say that you had... you always maintained your faith throughout your adult life, but it was more just not a priority?
Yes.
Or would you say that there was like another light bulb moment?
Well, that was a light bulb moment. I mean, if I had been living in self-will.
Okay.
I definitely had been living in self-will.
But if somebody
Although
were
I
to
didn't
ask you,
know it.
if someone were to ask you 10 years ago, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? You probably would have said,
I would, if they said believe in God.
Yeah.
If they said, do you believe in Jesus? Would have been harder for me.
Okay.
So when I went through the catechism and it was, and you declare your faith in Jesus Christ, I had a hard time with that when I first read it. But through praying the rosary, I think that really helped me, because you go from Mary to Jesus in the rosary. And so, and the Jesus prayer at the end of every mystery is also very helpful, because you're, oh my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell, and lead all souls to heaven, especially those in need of thy mercy, which was quite a prayer. When I first read it, I thought, wow, that's quite a prayer. But I've gotten used to that, and through practice, right? And I think that that's what people don't understand about church. It isn't about belief in God necessarily. It's about your willingness to go to church on a regular basis and make it into a practice, so that over time, whatever is going to happen spiritually can happen. Also, if you run into difficulty, then you know where to go, because you've already been practicing. And so I think really a lot of things in life are about practice. Even being married, you're practicing being married. Well, if you're practicing being married, then what is it that you do during your practice? How do you greet your husband when he comes home at night? Have you discussed that? When you have dinner at night, how is that performed in gratitude, so that everybody is feeling like they are properly grateful for dinner? And so all of these things that you do, it's really good to define them and to practice them every day, because that's your life. You can go on holidays twice a year. That's not your life. It's every day that you wake up and have breakfast with your family. That's life.
Yeah. I think the interesting part about faith, and I've described it this way, and you tell me what you think about this. I've described it where people, I think, often want certainty from faith, whereas I say the certainty is on the other side of the practice. And so I've always paralleled it to this, as I say, like, if I believe that eating a high protein diet and strength training will help me be lean, live longer, make me stronger. If I believe that, you can believe that in an abstract sense. You can believe that and say, yeah, sure, more chicken, less processed foods, walk, strength train, lift heavy weights. You can believe that in an abstract sense, but I don't develop the confidence and the certainty of that being true until I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And then as I walk through that process, I look back and I go, there's no one that can convince me that that's not true.
Right.
Because I've walked through it and I've done it and I've done it enough. And even if I drift in my nutrition, or I have a rough weekend because I traveled, I know that these are the principles of being healthy and living a fulfilling, healthy life within a good BMI. And so I think sometimes people want a certainty to faith that I don't think we're promised. I think
we're given it.
Yeah.
We're not given it.
Yeah.
It's up to us to practice it. You know, if I get up in the morning, I pray the rosary every morning, and that sets up my day so that I am present and grateful, and I have perseverance, and so it just gives me everything that I need to take whatever challenges come that day. But then say there's a day where life starts right away as soon as I wake up and I'm not able to pray. I I have to pray sometime during that day, because I know that the only way that I'm going to benefit from my faith is if I practice it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I start to fall away from it. I start to worry, you know, and I start to be fearful, and it's not helpful.
Yeah.
It's not helpful.
Yeah. And the beautiful part is that Jesus says, the faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. So you don't need a lot of it. You just need a little bit of confidence, a little bit of trust. And that little bit of trust all of a sudden changes, and it builds and it compounds. And then it turns into this firm confidence that I know my God is with me. I know that everything is going to be okay. I know all things work for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And it's tricky, because I think we go to one of two extremes. We either want all rules and rituals, or we just want all FAQ answers to objective truth claims. It's and both. We need to believe things, but belief should force us to act and live different, and walk that out. And so I've been marinating on that, and I think you've articulated it similarly in this conversation. So now, would you say you've had a paradigm shift in your view? So tell me about that.
I was living in self-will. So I was definitely looking to see how I could be effective in the world, but it would be more in a way that was dreaming it up rather than seeing what's there.
Okay.
And so now I see what's there, and I act on that. And I try not to go any further than that. I listen to what's going on in the world. And some of the things strike me, and some of the things don't. The things that strike me, I should act on. It's up to me to act on it, because who knows why they struck me. But it's up to me to answer to that. It's not up to someone else. It's not, just because something strikes me, it's like, why aren't they paying attention to that? Well, it didn't strike them. It didn't strike them. It struck me. That's my responsibility. So I feel now that I live more in the present, and I look for my next right move from the present. That's different.
What do you make of the different ways God is seeming to move right now, right? I think that what you and your husband are doing, I think is an amazing catalyst, just to bring the conversation to the consciousness of the culture, right? Just talking about God and talking about church and talking about these things. I know you have watched The Chosen before, and there's an explosion with seemingly Christian media. Are you hopeful that God seems to be really moving in ways that we haven't, at least in my lifetime, I haven't seen so many different players at the same time impacting culture?
Jordan did a podcast with Dallas Jenkins, and Dallas said that 100 million people have watched The Chosen.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that means that through our movies, we have good story. We have good stories through YouTube. We have good stories. We have shorts on TikTok to try to overcome all the liberal craziness that's on TikTok.
I posed you the question this way, and you let me know what you think, because you're a devoted Catholic, and your faith is so evident. I feel like any video I've watched of yours,
when it comes to God, then I'm happy about it.
Yeah. So I proposed this to you. I don't know if you remember, we were talking in the green room, and I said, tell me what you think about this. I said, in my opinion, what C.S. Lewis did with the Chronicles of Narnia for children, I said, is what I believe God is doing with Dr. Jordan Peterson for the intellectual crowd. I feel like he speaks to that world in a way that makes sense to them, in the same way that C.S. Lewis wrote Chronicles of Narnia, and it speaks to my 4-year-old and my 10-year-old in a way that makes sense to them to communicate the gospel. in the good news about Jesus, the kingdom,
What are you reading them from C.S. Lewis?
Well, they're reading Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe right now. Yeah. So I went back to Mere Christianity, and my 10-year-old is reading Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, and we watched the film of it recently, and I loved it. And it was like I'm watching it and tearing up as an adult. I'm like, this is so beautiful, the storytelling, and so I think there's different vehicles to speak to different people. And so that was my proposal to you. I said, I think that's what's happening with your husband. I think God's using him to speak to a very specific avatar that I can't speak to, right? I don't have the credentials. I don't have the expertise. A pastor may not be able to reach, right? A comedian may not be able to reach, but someone that has a academic background in psychology and understands typography and maps and memes and all these things can speak to them.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful because he can speak at the theoretical, and then he can bring it down through psychology to the practical, and then people can go, oh yeah, I see how that works. And I think that really resonates with people, that they say, oh yeah, I see how I can put that in my life right now. I can see it. I don't have to figure out what this really theoretical kind of abstract idea is. No, he's brought it down to the practical, and now I see how I can walk with this. Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah.
And it seemed, and people, we were in San Antonio last night. That's where we were. Oh, and the audience was very hot, appreciative, and sometimes it's like that. Depends where we go, but you know that when they're really listening, that there's change happening there, that people are waking up. They're waking up. We have a song that plays at the end of the night that Jordan and I recorded with some friends of ours, and it's called, is it Wake Up? No, I think we sent that one to Justin Trudeau. Wake up, wake up.
That's funny. He's out of there, by the way.
Oh my goodness, not soon enough.
How'd you feel about Trump offering him to annex Canada into a state of the United States?
Yeah, I think, tease him forever. Just keep teasing him.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
That's all right.
So you guys do a song at the end of the tour, and is that the song "Wake Up"?
Maybe it's not, but that's the one that came to mind. Wake up. Wake up.
You feel like God is using you guys to wake up a generation?
Seems that way. Looks that way. We definitely have the feedback. And so as long as this continues to be a positive and engaged endeavor, we'll keep doing it. He's just signing a book deal for 2 more books. So one of them will be the second half of this book.
So it's a 4-part,
The
right?
Gospels and Job. And he's about 2/3 done already.
Wow. Yeah, I think we're going to do a book club for our Patreon community and go through We Who Wrestle with God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. What do you make of you are Catholic?
He goes to church with me.
He does.
He does.
Your daughter is also Protestant.
She's Protestant, yeah.
And you guys are all kind of in the Arizona area.
Yeah.
And so, what is that like? And I'm all for like.
They don't go to church.
Really?
No, they're very sensitive to environmental allergens. I don't know exactly how to describe it. So, mold in particular in churches, they're sometimes moldy. So they don't go to church very often.
But she seems to have a pretty radical awakening as well.
Yeah, she reads the Bible, I don't know how regularly, but regularly.
Yeah. It seems like
when I went through this, she said to me, because we just had a podcast together, she was thinking, I want what Mom has. I want what Mom has. And she found it.
So would you say you guys as a family, without going too detailed, were, before this 2019 miracle story, were more agnostic, more theist, more deist? Like, how would you have defined your worldview prior to this miracle happening?
So, Jord was just teaching exactly what he's teaching, It's more biblical now, but it wasn't that. He was just beginning, I think, to really engage with the biblical stories. Because a lot of his learning was from Carl Jung, right? Because I asked him, I wanted to take my kids to church, but I didn't insist, so they didn't go. But he didn't want to go to church. He didn't like school. He said he didn't like anything that was, so he's had to overcome. But now he realizes when he goes to church, it's a place for him to relax and meditate and
he's been going to church
and
with you?
listen. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And often that, Jonathan Pajot told me that every man comes to God through his mother or his wife.
Yeah. Yeah. The data also shows that if and when the man comes, the wife and the kids are like almost very highly likely to come to faith.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a 99% chance that the rest of the family comes to faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how would you define your view prior to this miraculous 2019 thing? You always kind of believed in God, but he was not a priority. You talked about self-will.
I definitely self-will. I didn't know. I just, people say sometimes that they read the Bible and they just don't get it. And then they have this religious experience and they open the Bible and it all makes sense. Yeah, it just seems to all make sense.
That's
now.
what it was like. After 2019, everything just clicked.
Yep.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
That's amazing. I saw the We Who Wrestle with God tour. Is this a continuation of that or is this different?
No, it's the same. The book only came out in November.
Yeah.
And so we traveled for 5 months before the book came out. And now we're traveling till April in North America.
Okay. And then to get tickets, we'll link it below. Is it just...
you go to jordanpeterson.com to see where the shows are. His whole itinerary is there.
If you want to see the full extended version of this conversation, as well as all of our future conversations, have access to the chat, be able to ask our guests questions, you could sign up for a free 7-day trial. Patreon. The link is in the description and the pinned comment below. Here's a little preview of this conversation. All right? I'll see you over on Patreon. Peace.
I told God that if he spared me, I would speak publicly. And so here I am. Those prayers, if they're answered, you have an obligation.
And I was like, holy moly, this is how you guys roll, huh?
Yeah,
it's like
that's
there's
right.
a stadium full of people out there.
Yeah.
And it's like...
When you were younger, and Jordan and I, often they ask us what kind of regrets we have. It was the day that the doctor told me that I had this problem that I went home to see my son. I went for a checkup and I came home with a diagnosis. And it's up to women to tell the man they want to have a baby. It's not up to anyone else. If you don't have a baby, it's because you didn't. He was just teaching exactly what he's teaching. It's more biblical now. But now he realizes when he goes to church, it's a place for him to relax and meditate.
And he's been going to church with you.
Ruslan